Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about Omori. This game has left a profound impact on me. I just finished it about a week ago. So in this video I'm basically going to be talking about like my personal experience. I'm not going to personally do a story summary because I know a lot of reviews tend to do that. I wouldn't even know if I would call this a review, just more like a discussion. So it's not going to be like a review or retrospective. I love those types of videos, but there's a lot of people that do that kind of stuff. And this is not going to be a story summary. But I do want to talk about the themes of the game. I do want to talk about, how I discovered the game and what the game ended up meaning to me by the end of it. And also, there will be a small spoiler section as well. I do want to let you guys know that in advance, so I will leave a timestamp for that. And before we go deeper into the video, I do want to talk about a couple things and address something. This game is a dark game. It goes over thoughts of suicide, depression. I think that's intentional. And I think that's a great choice, but if you are sensitive to that kind of stuff, I think this game is either going to be amazing for you because you'll feel less alone, or it can make things worse for you because it's triggering stuff. So, I would seek advice, professional advice, whether you should play this game or not. That's not for me to decide for you. But I think if you are someone that that you can handle it, I think it's an amazing experience. First, I want to discuss how I found out about Omori. I found out about Omori personally a long time ago, before even deciding I wanted to pick it up and play it. But it wasn't because of the Kickstarter. I missed that boat. I wasn't really part of the community of fans that were like waiting for this game to come out. Luckily, I was fortunate enough to have discovered it like close to its release, and that was because I had a few friends go to an event that Omori presented, talking about the game, where I guess they presented it to an audience, and I thought it was really cool that they got to go to that. But to be honest with you, I had no idea who Omori was at the time or what Omori was. I just knew that they told me about this and they were like really excited about this game, how it looked like a great old school RPG. At that point, I had the seed planted in my head that maybe I'll look into this game at some point. It just wasn't like something that was on my radar at that moment, because I think I was like super into Final Fantasy VII Remake and like other things at the time, and I was going through music school, so it's like I didn't have the headspace for it. Later on though, I passed by a Best Buy and I saw this physical copy of Omori. I was not expecting a physical copy to be released because, to be honest with you, I thought it was like a very small indie game, kind of like in the realms of like Undertale or something, that which eventually got a physical release after it blew up. But that's a kind of what happened to Omori as well. And I thought that was quite interesting because I saw this, I looked at it, I was like, wait, I know that game, like, let me look into it. I picked it up, I looked at the back, I was like, I think I'm gonna pick this up. It was for a good price. I loved the physical stuff they brought you. They got you a photo with Basil over here. You even got like a great guide with like, kind of like an old school RPG where, you get like the back, the front, and then you have like pages where you can read about characters and how to play the game and all that stuff. So for me, like, as soon as I saw something like that, it kind of told me who like the audience was for. Like, it was like people that really like these sorts of like indie RPGs that are RPG Maker style kind of RPGs. And you guys know my favorite horror game is The Witch's House, which is an RPG Maker game. This game just appealed to me for so many different reasons. As soon as I saw the box art, I heard great reviews from friends, and I'm very fortunate to be not in the crowd of people that were just waiting for this game for like years and years and just never being released. And because of that, another benefit is I went into this game like really blind, not knowing what to expect. Just coming with this fresh perspective, I can tell you that for me, I really loved the experience I had with this game, and I'm excited to talk about why. First impressions, really quick. Something that grabbed my attention right away was art style. The art style for this game is incredibly unique. Some things are hand drawn, but like kind of like in a, I would say like kind of like anime, but also like a child that's learning how to draw in the anime style. But it's very intentional the way that it's designed, and I really appreciate that. And then even the pixel art is like really well done. The animations are really smooth, and I think there's a lot of little touches that you can do with kind of this old fashioned RPG art style that you can't really do with modern games. And it's a lot of it gets to use your imagination a lot of the time, and I really appreciated this art style for a lot of reasons. Very colorful, very dark, intentionally very weird and like brain fuckery at times. It's really like, and it's some of it is scary, and it's not scary because something like just there's like I'm not gonna spoil what it is, but there's like this like black thing with one eye in the middle, and it just looks like a black blob with one eye. But the way that they use this is so scary, but in a way that's like, oh, it's because my imagination. And it makes me feel like, you know, if there's something like deep in my brain that aligns with this kid, that I could put the pieces together. And I think that's really cool. The music in this game is also very, very well done. I think, you know, not all of it is like, you know, Final Fantasy level music. I don't think that was the intention anyways, but it was perfect for this game and this style. A lot of it can be very subtle, a lot of it can be really creepy, and a lot of it can be very like uneasy, but not quite, but peaceful at the same time. Like, and I don't know how to describe that feeling, but the music does a really good job. And I'm going to play some of the music throughout this video so you get a kind of an idea for it. None of this is technically complex, but it's all incredibly effective. And I think that's the best way I can describe this game. It's not, it fits the game as well. And the art style, everything. Nothing in this game is incredibly complex, but it's incredibly impactful with the little things that they had. And I appreciate that a lot. Let me talk a little bit about pacing. I think for me personally, the pacing of this game was a little bit tough because pacing was really good in the beginning. You go through 2 different worlds. There's one, you go through the world as Omori, and then the other side you go through the world as Sunny. I would say, like, you know, Omori is like his dream self and Sunny is his real life self. And so even though the game is called Omori, the main character is Sunny, who's also Omori. It's kind of weird. If you play the game, you'd understand, but without spoiling anything, you know, the real life sections, I felt like they were paced really well. And the Omori sections can be paced well, but there are things in the Omori sections that don't really have too much relevance to the rest of the plot, and it's still fun, but it could drag sometimes. Specifically, if you go to like Sweetheart's Castle, I felt like that section kind of dragged out a bit. For something that ultimately was like just funny. It was like a gag, but like if you keep telling, it's like you kept trying to extend this joke. I think pacing could have been done better in the headspace sections, but the real world sections were really well done, and I think that was some of the most impactful stuff in the game. However, there are certain sections in the headspace sections that you absolutely need to understand the real life sections, so they go hand in hand. I do think this game, you know, the side content, I think is there to maybe create a deeper bond with the characters and explore them a little bit more, and I think that's cool, but some of them didn't really help with much. I think the supporting, not the main 4 characters, because there's technically other main characters, but everyone else, like the NPCs, I didn't really find anyone too interesting. So when you do side quests for them, it would ruin the pacing for me a little bit. Even though I thought the pacing was kind of weird for like 3 to 4 hours of the game, the rest of it was paced really well. And I thought that was very, very incredible. I really liked that it wasn't a super long game either. Now, gameplay. Let's talk about that very briefly. You go through the real world sections. I already talked about that briefly, where you're kind of exploring Sunny and what he's going through in the real world. The Omori Dream World sections. And then there are the other parts where it's combat. And I thought the combat in this game was actually really, really well done. It's based off an emotion system, so you make your character angry. And if your character is angry and your opponent is sad, your attacks work better against that opponent, and vice versa. You know, so you utilize your emotions to basically have stronger attacks. And so it is turn-based, so if you're not into turn-based games, it might slow down for you. But if you like turn-based games like me, and you like these kind of systems and how they work with the gameplay, I think that's also very impactful. And what I really liked about that system is that, again, just as I talked about in the music, it's not something super complex, but very effective. But it also kind of gave insight into all the characters, right? Like Omori makes other people sad. Kel, who is one of your friends, makes other people incredibly happy because he's just like this cheery guy. Aubrey does that too. Sorry, Aubrey's the one that makes people happy. I'm sorry. Kel is the one that makes people angry because he's oblivious and he just ignorant sometimes, but you love him anyways. And then Hiro is the healer, I guess, in the group. He could calm people's emotions down. He cooks for his friends, and I think that's a good way to show like the elements that the characters have based on their emotions also reflect the kind of person that they are. Now let's go ahead and talk about spoilers. So before diving in, I'm letting you know, like, the spoiler is like the big reason why a lot of people should play this game, and it's because it has an incredibly huge impact on everything. So you go through the game in the real world sections, and what makes this part impactful is because in the Omori sections, which you start off with, you have 3 friends, which is Aubrey, Kel, and Hiro. And then you have your sister Mari and your friend Basil. These are 5 people that are crucial to the plot. Now you're with your 3 friends, you're having adventures together, and at some point Basil gets lost in headspace. You don't know it's headspace yet, you just think it's part of this world, you know, but Basil's lost and you're trying to look for Basil. But then you're suddenly woken to the real world, and then you realize that those friends that you have, that you're in your little dream space, you're not friends with them anymore. In fact, you've kind of like not talked to them for years, and you're like, why am I not friends with them? What happened? You meet with Kel, who's like kind of your neighbor, along with Hiro. Hiro's off in college. Kel is bad. Kel is like knocking on your door. He knows that you're moving, so he wants to come and, you know, reignite some flames of friendship, which is really cool. You go around with him, have a little bit of fun, but then you realize that your friend Aubrey, who Kel's always fighting with, is like really upset, and she's kind of like this bully character. And it's a stark contrast because in the Headspace world, she's like this sweet person that later is revealed that Omori has a crush on, or Sunny has a crush on. And I think that's like, oh, okay, like that's maybe the way he sees her, but this is how she really is. And so you get these like nice little moments that you get from like you don't get that kind of impact like, oh, what happened to Aubrey? Because if you didn't play the Headspace section, you would think that she's just a sweet little girl, and now you're like, oh, she's kind of an asshole. She has like a bat as her weapon, like it's really bad. And then also you realize that Basil has secluded himself, and you know Aubrey hates Basil for an unknown reason, and there's like all these things that like build up in the real world section. At some point you find out your sister dies, and then you go to Headspace, you go through some things, you find out eventually that she committed suicide. And when I saw that, I was, you know, it was very impactful, because I was like, oh my gosh, you know, like I lost someone important to me, and I thought they were at a very young age because of, you know, self-harm too. So I saw that and I was like, wow, like, okay, I feel this. Like, I do feel this a lot. And then you get to a point where you find out that it wasn't a suicide, but Omori, in a fit of rage, accidentally killed his sister, and his friend Basil, you know, I guess they came up with the idea like, oh, you know, let's frame it as a suicide. And they hung her on a tree. And that figure that I talked about earlier that's like a black thing is like actually being hung with her eye popping out, which is really creepy. And that was incredibly haunting. And then the rest of the game is him learning to, one, forgive himself, see if he can forgive Basil, and then also like having the courage to tell his friends the truth of what really happened, because they all think that she committed suicide. And he's worried about how his friends are going to treat him afterwards. They would hate him. Like, he's already self-loathing. He already hates himself for what he did. He has thoughts about suicide. He thinks about killing himself. You know, it gets really dark. The stuff this kid must have been feeling. The way that his friends felt is like what I felt, but like the secret that he held inside was like, wow, like how do you go past that? You know, you gave someone that you loved harm, like a sibling, and that's hard to forgive, you know? So it's one of those things that I was like, wow, like this game is a lot deeper and it has a lot of meanings for something so simple. And I'm sure this is something that actually happens to folks. And this is a cause of like, I accidentally killed a loved one. And I thought that was very impactful. So that story resonated with me personally because of things I have been through. But also like the empathy I shared for this character. And seeing just even the dark spaces in his mind. Like, I think all of us have a little bit of that inside, and some of us hide it better than others, and some of us struggle to hide it. This game touches on those subjects, I think, in a very profound way, and I think in that sense it was worth playing for me. So would I recommend this game to somebody else? For me personally, I loved the game. It was like a solid 8 out of 10. If I qualify this as a horror game, you guys know previously I said my favorite horror game was The Witch's House, but I will put this up there if you're going to consider this a horror game. That's my thoughts on Omori. I loved the game. I would recommend it to most people. If you're not someone that likes turn-based RPGs, or if you're someone that is very sensitive to these topics, I probably would stray away from it. But if you want to explore these themes and topics and you have the headspace for it, I would absolutely, recommend this game. It's a beautiful game, especially if you like these old RPGs and how they tell stories. I feel like it's a great way to remind me like these old RPGs still matter. Pixel art matters. And I think that's incredibly important that it was able to move me in such a way that not a lot of other games were able to do. Those are my thoughts on Omori. I absolutely recommend playing this game. That's it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening. I look forward to the next video. I actually have a few things planned, so I'm excited to talk about it. Until then, talk to you guys next time. Take care.